This seemingly empty text file contains my real YouTube password. Don't believe me? Let's run through my decoder. And there's my password. If I take this other empty file and run it through my program, I get the entire script for Shrek. Now the key to this illusion is invisible characters, and in this video, I'm going to show you some cool tricks you can use, followed by some funny pranks to play on your friends, and ending on actual exploits hackers use, for educational purposes only. Before I go on, please note that the representation and use cases for these characters may differ between operating systems and apps, and they may change in the future. Now these characters don't seem very useful, but you'd be surprised by how much power they have. If I take two invisible characters, the zero with space and the zero with joiner, and use them in a text file, it appears empty, but let's say I place them in a very particular order to represent binary numbers. If I convert those characters into a string of ones and zeros, and then convert those numbers into ASCII, we get the following output, which is how we can store messages within a seemingly empty text file. Obviously, these characters can cause a few issues, as you'll soon find out, which is one reason why some editors have a visual representation for them. So if I open a file in Notepad, it might look empty, but if I open it in IntelliJ, behold! Wait, hold on, wrong file. Behold, it's supposed to be a heart. Now, text editors aren't the only apps we can play around with. Ever seen a YouTube video with no title at all? Well, even though spaces don't count, you can just use a zero-width non-joiner character. What about posting an empty Instagram comment? Well, do I have good news for you, my friend? Just use the hang all filler. There's a bunch of other ones I'm too lazy to talk about, so I've included a link in the description with a few more. Now, another cool trick has to do with folder and file names. Typically, you can't give two files the same name, but by inserting an invisible character, they visually look identical. You can actually use this trick to play pranks on your friends. If you rename one of their files by adding one of these characters, they'll no longer be able to open it from the terminal unless they include the invisible characters. Not to mention it might break something on their system, which I did learn the hard way. There's a much cooler prank you can use though, and it's all thanks to the right to left override, or RLO for short. In a nutshell, it reverses visible text. So let's say you and the homies are working on an assignment due at midnight, and you're using a shared Google Doc. Just insert RLO in a few places, and all of a sudden, the document is a mess. You can copy paste all you want, move it to a different Google Doc or a completely different editor. The text will still be reversed. Another small trick is to insert invisible characters in between words and phrases, breaking Control F in certain applications. So these are all pretty harmless, but there are actually some less innocent use cases out there, which is why I think it's time to put up this disclaimer. Disclaimer, the following hacks are for educational purposes only. This video is only demonstrating how they are possible and how you can protect yourself from them. These are well-known attacks and modern tools often protect against them. Now let's switch gears and take another look at the RLO character, which is abused by hackers because they can change the visible name of a file without changing its actual purpose. So for example, maybe you pirate a video called Sexiest Graphics Cards 2026, which, that's kind of interesting, maybe I should— No, don't do it, because if you click on that video, you actually just lose all of your private information. You see, there's actually an RLO character between 2026 and EXE, which makes it appear as an MP4, but in reality, it's actually a malicious executable. Now that might be a pretty suspicious looking file, especially if some rando sends it to you, but maybe you're looking for apartments and start talking to a guy named Elliot who has a pretty sweet deal on a duplex. Now you might think to yourself, surely my machine won't be hacked by this very sane and normal looking individual who definitely isn't burned by childhood trauma. So he sends you two images of the property, duplex interior.png and duplex exterior.png. You open the first image. Nothing unusual here besides the horrendous excuses for Windows. So then you download the interior image. Everything is fine, but when you download the other image, you get a window that reads, "This file type might be dangerous." Hey, wait a second, what kind of salesperson hides an exe file behind an image? Elliot also says the duplex has lots of bright natural lighting, but I'm pretty sure that's just the malware slowly destroying everything. Luckily, this trick is well known, and as you can see here, there are many security measures in place to make sure you don't download a malicious file. So let's carry on with Trojan source attacks, which deal with changing what a piece of code visually looks like. This type of attack exploits the difference between how code looks to humans and how it looks to the compiler. So here's an example of that. What do you reckon this piece of code does? If you guessed jack shit, you'd be correct, because who the f debugs their code with print statements? Alright, I do. But that aside, it prints out a very descriptive debug statement exactly one time, which might confuse you because the code clearly has a for loop. But if we actually copy and paste the text into IntelliJ here, you can clearly see it contains invisible characters. And there are even more nefarious ways to use this trick. Now you might be wondering why I didn't show the Java file in IntelliJ, and that's because it knows that no matter how many of these characters I use, this whole line is still just a badly written comment. Obviously, since this attack is internal, the adversary needs a way to actually access the source code, which is why it's more of a problem in large collaborative projects. Well, that's all I have for today. I know this video is a little different than what you guys are used to, but I needed something that didn't take as long. The next few videos demand a little more time to make, but they'll align more with the type of content that you're used to seeing. Anyways, thanks for watching.